Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Sirhan on X, as we are live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States on the 2nd of October, 2025. Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful day today. Back to the normal routine. Last night was the Super Show. For those of you that missed it, I covered the Thriller in Manila, which was the 50-year anniversary of the Super Slugfest that took place in the Philippines between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. If you missed any part of it, you can catch those on the Apple Podcast app, as well as the iHeartRadio and Spotify apps. And it was probably one of the better shows I felt like I'd done. Got a lot of some compliments about it. Thank you very much. You guys dictate the views. I don't. I just supply the product. You guys deliver the reviews. That's how I always take it. I always set more of a humble approach than some of these creators who want to brag about views. I don't, because my product does all the dictating. That's all I have to say about that. Shout out Brenda Baker. Hope you're doing well over there tonight in your part of town over there in Indiana. Now we'll get this thing started. And we'll start with week 5 of the NFL. Of course, no NFL content last night due to the historical event that I devoted the time to, which I should add, I spent 2.5 weeks preparing for that Ali Frazier Thriller in Manila show last night. So, yeah, I put work and effort into it. Also, later this week, I will have an article on the 50th anniversary reliving that fight. It'll be posted on the social media platforms coming up soon. But now to tonight's show. Of course, the kickoff here in a few minutes over in LA between the 49ers and the Rams. I'll get the pick in real quick because this was my pick all along. 49ers are just too banged up. Rams are playing pretty darn well. LA wins this one at home. Matthew Stafford's just going to do whatever he wants. Losing Nick Bosa on the defensive front is going to bite San Francisco eventually down the line, unless they find someone at the trade deadline to fulfill him on a 1-year rental. They're going to hit the downturn. LA Rams win this one at home. Matthew Stafford's going to have himself a game. Now we go to the early slate, the 1 o'clock slate. Actually, let's go to the early morning slate over in England. It is Minnesota and Cleveland. We know the storyline with this one. Dylan Gabriel getting the start, being the 150th quarterback to start for the Cleveland Browns since he came back in the league. I don't know how many that is because I lost count after 75. So I don't know how much what starting quarterback it is. I know the one individual in Cleveland who has a shirt with all of the starting quarterbacks since 99 will now add his name to it. So it's more likely going to be 150 or whatever the number it is. But congratulations. Your debut is going to be against a Brian Flores defense who's just going to deliver a beating. And if the defense, I'm sure, got a wake-up call during the week after letting DK Metcalf blow for a big one against Pittsburgh, for Pittsburgh against Minnesota. Cleveland doesn't have any kind of playmakers like that. This one I think is going to be a smash-mouth game. Neither offense is particularly great. But of those two, give me Minnesota. This one has the makings of one of those low-scoring games in the 17-14 range. Cleveland's defense is as good as it gets. Minnesota's is not far behind. But who do you trust, Carson Wentz or Dylan Gabriel? For all of his flaws, still give me Carson Wentz, and I'm taking Minnesota at home. Now to the early 1 o'clock slate. Dallas at the Jets. Dallas defense can't, stop a group of statues coming at them, but the New York Jets offense is not a group of statues because they're not going to do enough, and the Dallas offense is just going to do whatever they want to do to the Jets defense. Give me Dallas on the road. And I think Dak. I know they don't have CeeDee Lamb, but I think Dak Prescott's going to have himself a day. The Jets defense can't stop an offense filled with statues, but good luck trying to slow down the Cowboys offense. Because remember, week 1, you found a way to give up 34 points to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That requires some kind of explanation. Giants and Saints. Giants, of course, coming off the win. Dart looks good. Saints, credible in the loss of Buffalo, going home. A lot of people peg this as the Saints' first win. Well, I think it's somewhat doable. I think the Giants' defensive front with Dexter Lawrence, Caden Thibodeau, Brian Burns, and Abdul Carter is just going to maul the Saints. And I think the Giants go back-to-back and get their second win. Jackson Dart's going to make just enough plays for them to get the win. The Saints, I don't even know who the hell the starting quarterback is. And whoever's going to be starting is going to get absolutely crushed because that Giants defensive front just abominated the Chargers offensive line to get to Justin Herbert, and I expect that to carry over. That defense gets them to win. Giants win on the road. Miami at Carolina. No Tyreek Hill for the rest of the season. For this game, I don't think it's going to matter. Carolina is just a hot mess right now, especially on the defensive side, who just got roasted by the New England Patriots and Drake May. And I expect Tua and Jalen Waddle to pick it up here. I expect them to get the road win. Don't think it'll be pretty because they're not all that great either. But Miami is going to get the road win. Give me Miami on the road. I think Carolina plays better at home in this case, and Miami's necessarily all that great. But we know Mike McDaniel's on the hot seat regardless. But I think for this week, they get a win streak. Miami wins at Carolina. This one, I think, also is going to be somewhat close. Medium scoring, maybe 24-20-ish, around that ballpark. And Denver at Philadelphia. Denver's defense came to life a little bit, albeit against a bottom feeder offense in Cincinnati. But they're going to Philadelphia, who's just finding ways to win despite not looking all that great on offense themselves. The offense of Philadelphia is going to make just enough plays to win it. They go to 5-0. Philly wins at home. Houston at Baltimore. A lot of storylines all over the place. The IRs on both, the injury reports on both teams are just stacked, especially on Baltimore's side. Houston got off the schneid against Tennessee, but it's Tennessee. And I know Baltimore's going to probably miss a half of their roster. But on the road, this might be the game Baltimore scraps out a win because Houston is just absolutely bottomed out right now. And that offensive line can't protect C.J. Stroud. They can't even protect a group of statues to prevent C.J. Stroud from getting sacked. Baltimore's going to scrap out a win some way, somehow. Don't know how, but they'll find a way to scrap it out on their home field because there was what was written about them this entire week after they laid that egg in Kansas City. And I think they find a way to scrap a win, albeit it won't be pretty. Probably the ugliest game of the day. Now to the late slate, the 4 o'clock slate. Tennessee at Arizona. Arizona just, of course, a couple weeks ago laid the egg against the San Francisco 49ers. They host a Tennessee team who's just bottomed out and flattened out. A get-right game for Arizona. They won this one at home. Give me Arizona. A good one up in the Northwest is Tampa Bay and Seattle. Seattle's defense started to represent what Mike Macdonald wants and the Mike Macdonald mantra. And in this one, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bounce back. They know they let one slip against Philadelphia when Baker Mayfield threw that red zone interception. I don't think they make that mistake again. Tampa wins this one on the road. I think this one has the makings of some kind of a 30-27 type ball game. But who do you trust, Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold? Give me Baker Mayfield, and I think Tampa Bay escapes. Washington and LA. Question is, who's going to be the quarterback for Washington? They're basically decimated going to LA against a Chargers team who just saw their left tackle Joe Alt go down. And we know where Sean Slater is out for the year, and Mekhi Becton is in the concussion protocol. But I think the Chargers escape with a win here. It's going to be another one of those ugly muck-it-up games. Both teams are going to be shorthanded, but do give me LA, the Chargers, at home. And the one here, Detroit at Cincinnati, I'll just say this in one word. Pray. Because you guys know in baseball, you used to have the mercy rule, where one team scores so many runs and it's so one-sided, it calls it out. If the Bengals aren't careful, it may get that one-sided. I think they played a little more inspirational this week in front of their home field. Not going to be good enough to win because I think Detroit, who was hit and miss last week against Cleveland, uses this game as a get-right game. But it's a trap game coming up because they got a couple games coming up, especially at Kansas City the following week. Potential trap game for Detroit. It's going to be closer than people think, but Detroit's going to win on the road. And I think they pull away and make it decisive. And basically that offense is just a juggernaut. And good luck trying to slow that down in Cincinnati. Because you have problems coming. And what's going to happen Sunday, it's going to be the snowball effect. And the Sunday night game, New England at Buffalo. Drake May's pretty good so far. Granted, the Bills' defense hasn't been necessarily all that great. But when you have Josh Allen and James Cook, that's all you need. Buffalo wins at home. they stand defeated. And a doozy of a Monday night game taking place in Jacksonville between the Chiefs and the Jaguars. Kansas found themselves in the last 2 weeks. Jacksonville, jury is still out. The defense has been formidable, but overall, the jury is still out. These are the kind of games Kansas City takes advantage of. I expect them to go to Jacksonville and get a win. This one to be very competitive. Comes down again. Who do you trust? Trevor Lawrence or Patrick Mahomes? Give me the guy who's been the 3-time Super Bowl MVP and the 2-time MVP who's rolling right now. And I expect that momentum of Kansas to roll. They win this one on the road in a very darn competitive game. So that concludes the NFL pick segment. One thing that needs to be touched on here in Cincinnati again, and once again, Bengals fans want to put their names in the middle of everything. We know what happened Sunday at Kansas City with the Baltimore Ravens getting just shredded all over the place. It includes an injury bug. Well, I already touched on the Lamar Jackson Quincy situation, but I'm not going to address that anymore. But now we have cowards that are the Cincinnati Bengals fans calling this injury report of theirs karma for what took place 3 years ago, apparently when supposedly a group of Ravens fans chanted expletive to their quarterback. Well, first of all, let me just say the Bengals fans were the ones that ignited and started all of this, so they have no room to talk. And I said all along, they're the biggest group of cowards walking the city of Cincinnati right now, by far, and it's not even debatable. And if that's your attitude when it comes to, attacking a fan base and attacking players who are injured, and if you lay an egg Sunday against Detroit, and you do it the same way you guys did last week when you talk about how you guys slander Lamar Jackson, they're going to come at you, and they're going to come at you hard. You better find a way to be competitive this Sunday against a Lions team that's a juggernaut, or all this karma talk you attacked Baltimore with, it's going to be an embarrassment. Good luck with that. Shout out Michael Yates. I just saw you pop in here. Get well soon. I hope you're doing well and feeling well. So that concludes the NFL segment. Now we touch on the sport of boxing. Before I get to the historical segment, there's something I got to unload a little bit. Apparently, the Hispanic boxing community has come out of the woodworks in defense of one Antonio Margarito. You guys know the story, especially the fight community, 16 and a half years ago in Los Angeles, the foreign object that was caught by Nassim Richardson, who trained Shane Mosley, and it was compensated by Dean Lowehouse, the California Athletic Commissioner, and they were forced to rewrap Antonio Margarito's hands 3 times. First of all, let's get this out of the way real quick. There was an illegal object in that locker room that was caught. Antonio Margarito fans don't have a leg to stand on. An illegal object was caught. What was it? People say it's plaster. I don't know. I wasn't in the locker room. Don't ask me what it was because I don't know. But it was illegal. And if Dean Lowehouse said it was illegal, it was illegal. Because when Dean Lowehouse said it was illegal, party is over. And we know what happened after that, where they had to rewrap Margarito's hands 3 times, and he got the brakes beaten off of him by Shane Mosley. But for some reason, Antonio Margarito fans come out of the woodworks and try to bust out altered court documents where they altered with all of this new PDF software editor stuff or whatever it's called, alter the documents to flash it on social media platforms to try and defend Antonio Margarito when the evidence proved time after time he was guilty of everything. Of course, they had the hearing a few weeks later after that where he and the trainer just threw each other under the bus. We know how that goes. But let me remind you, shortly after that, there was a documentary called Cornered in Memphis, Tennessee. Check that, Nashville, Tennessee, of the Louis Russell, Billy Collins situation. It was shortly after that, HBO bought that from the producer, Eric Kraft, called it Assault in the Ring, and played it weeks after that incident took place. And Antonio Margarito fans don't even have a leg to stand on anymore once that document was released. Because that could have happened to Shane Mosley had that thing gone through. Now, this conspiracy about it happened in the first Miguel Cotto fight, I don't know enough for the details. But when you look at Antonio Margarito's career, after he was caught against Shane Mosley, Manny Pacquiao, and the rematch against Miguel Cotto, where he just got beat up in all 3 fights. And he got wiped out. I mean, he didn't even win 2 rounds tops against any of those 3 guys. And you add the quit job he had against Paul Williams, the guy's a fraud. And no, there was no slandering going on, because when you're caught in an illegal act, the way he and his cornermen were on that night in Los Angeles against Shane Mosley, you're officially a fraud. And anything that happens from that point forward, it didn't matter. You can have your Hispanic community all you want, talk about them all you want. The problem is the result was set in stone. Evidence was proven. There was something that had no business being in the locker room, and that's something everybody misses. There was something in that locker room that had no business being there. Nobody wants to bring it up in the Hispanic community because they have Antonio Margarito in their personal fantasies. That's plain and simple. And what happened that night was basically a case of someone got a thief being caught in the middle of the night and basically have nothing to show in this walk of life. Because from that point forward, Antonio Margarito became irrelevant and basically a used up product because he was caught in the act. Once he was caught in the act, the party was over. And honestly, even if he used that, I think it would be Shane Mosley anyways, because Mosley was driven to beat him, because Mosley was ready to take matters in his own hands that night, regardless, because it was his last, at that time, his last chance to win a world title of significance, which he did. Didn't help his cause, didn't help Margarito's cause that he was caught. Now, this is the same Richardson who saw some weirdness in the hand wraps of Felix Trinidad before his fight with Bernard Hopkins 24 years ago. Because he was in the locker room basically telling the Trinidad camp, you better wrap your hands correctly. And Don King, trying to fight it, said, you let us wrap our hands the wrong way or the right way, there's no fight. You're not going to fool Naseem Richardson in that locker room. He's an old school guy who knows all the tricks. He's a guy that when he sees anything that shouldn't be there, he's going to point it out. He'll call it out. He did it when it came to the Bernard Hopkins, Felix Trinidad hand wraps with Trinidad. And he did it 16 years ago in Los Angeles with the Antonio Margarito having an illegal object that had no business being there for the fight with Shane Mosley. There was an illegal object in there that had no business being there. What was it? I don't know. I wasn't there. Don't come to me for answers. But it was illegal. And if Dean Lohaus said it was illegal, it was illegal. Same with Naseem Richardson. They called it out. So Antonio Margarito fans, you can go back, live into your own soapboxes, supporting the cheater that you fantasized over for the longest time, thinking he was in the same conversation as Julio Cesar Chavez when he never was. And you might as well just cease to exist. End of story. The footage speaks for itself. You can crop up all your fake court documents all you want, altered court documents all you want. It doesn't matter. The results were spoke out. Antonio Margarito was caught. And from that point forward, the guy was just irrelevant and got wiped out. Too bad the guy didn't wind up 6 feet under, because that's where he belonged after what he tried to do to Shane Mosley. Golly Jesus. What's assault in the ring after what Louis Rezo did to Billy Collins? That's all you need to know. Now I got that off my chest. Now we're going to travel back in time to more fun stuff that don't involve any controversy for beginners. We're going to go back 83 years ago 83 years ago at Madison Square Garden. It was the first of the 6-fight series between Sugar Ray Robinson and Jake LaMotta. It was Robinson's middleweight debut after reigning supreme in the welterweight division, facing the tough Jake LaMotta. We know the story of the Raging Bull. Actually, it's known as the Bronx Bull. Styles make fights. Interesting story of this one was back then, it was the old school 8. There was no junior or super divisions. And because of how it was set up, Sugar Ray Robinson only weighed 147 pounds against the 158-pound version of Jake LaMotta. Real interesting. Because, remember, this is the old school 8 here, not with the juniors and the supers. This is the old school stuff. And the story of this one, in Robinson's middleweight debut, he got hit and floored early. LaMotta's strength was going to take over. But we saw another case of why Sugar Ray Robinson is the greatest fighter pound for pound of all time. He got up, made the adjustments, took over, and from the second round on, just did anything and everything he wanted to, and got the unanimous decision win in his middleweight debut. And in an era today where you don't get 3 fights a year, if that, maybe, this was the 14th fight in the calendar year of 1942 for Sugar Ray Robinson. And it was a middleweight debut against one of the premier middleweights to ever step foot in the boxing ring in Jake LaMotta. And after getting touched early, he got up and just rolled all over Jake LaMotta and just got a unanimous decision win. It was the first of a 6-fight series. LaMotta, of course, would get the rematch. Then Robinson would get the next 3. And then the 6th fight was just an obliteration known as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, where Robinson just administered a beating to LaMotta to end that 6-fight rivalry where he won 5-1. And when you talk about rivalries where fighters are made for one another, these two were probably not as competitive as some of the others due to the serene talent of Sugar Ray Robinson, which probably the most talented fighter, pound for pound of all time. Not just the greatest due to his accolades, but his talent also. When you talk about poetry in motion, Sugar Ray Robinson was the gold standard and will forever be the gold standard. And Jake LaMotta is as tough as they come. Gritty, tough. You know, the movie The Raging Bull when it comes to him. Just as tough as they come. But Sugar Ray Robinson just did anything and everything he wanted to. It was essentially a 9-1, 8-2 decision in terms of rounds. Remember, back then, it wasn't the point system. It was the round system where it was basically 8-2 to 9-1 across the board. I mean, you give LaMotta the first round for the knockdown. I agree, it wasn't much. But you do give him the first round for that. But from the second round on, Robinson did anything and everything he wanted to. And ignited the first of a 6-fight rivalry. We're not as intense as Ali Frazier, because that stuff in and out of the ring. But when you talk about competitive in-the-ring rivalries, Robinson and LaMotta was as good as anyone. I mean, LaMotta did everything he could to hang in there with Sugar Ray Robinson, but the supreme talent of Robinson was just way too much. But in that ring, it was hotly contested, especially fights 2 through 5, where both fighters had their moments. It was the first and the 6th fights where the difference in talent showed, as Sugar Ray Robinson was just up here and LaMotta was right here. And it's not a knock on Jake LaMotta, who is an all-time great middleweight. I mean, if you have a top 10 great middleweights of all time, Jake LaMotta is on it. But Sugar Ray Robinson was so far high in the sky, you couldn't even see him through the clouds. That's just how terrifically great Sugar Ray Robinson was. And we talked about all the rivalries, and this one, maybe the thing with this rivalry was, you know, this rivalry spent only 5 years, 5 or 6 years, if I'm correct. A lot of these fighter rivalries these days last a decade or even longer. These guys fought many times. It's not that they wait for one another. They were fighting literally 15 to 20 times in between fights. They were just staying active till they met each other in the ring again. And we don't see that in the sport today. That's the thing. So Sugar Ray Robinson made his middleweight debut in his 14th fight of the calendar year 1942. Went to 36-0. Won a decision, the tough and durable Jake LaMotta by unanimous decision, coming off the canvas to put on a boxing lesson. Just two terrific all-time great middleweights. And I say this again. If you think someone's good enough to compete or challenge the pound-for-pound stature of Sugar Ray Robinson, get checked for CTE, because that person is so far behind him, Robinson couldn't see him out of a rearview mirror. That's how great Sugar Ray Robinson was. And now we fast forward from a night where a lot of good happened to a night of mystery. And maybe I'll try to explain this, because we always have to explain what I'm about to talk about, because that's how the sport is. And maybe this falls in another category of fights that had no business taking place. The evidence was there, but somehow we let it go. I'm going to try to break this down the best I can. This was 45 years ago tonight at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. It was Larry Holmes defending the heavyweight title against Muhammad Ali. We know the backlog and the story behind this. I'm going to try to explain it, because here we are in the calendar year 2025, and this being the 45-year anniversary of it, people are still asking questions. Well, let's start with how we got to this point. Muhammad Ali regains the championship from Leon Spinks, vacates it, and was basically retired at that point. The title went to Ken Norton on a fallacy due to governing body rankings. And Ken Norton met Larry Holmes for the heavyweight title in a classic where the 15th round was just a great fight back and forth. Both guys gave it all the best they could, where Holmes won it on a split decision due to winning the 15th round. Made a couple title defenses, but as he's making his title defenses, Muhammad Ali announces he's coming back to challenge Holmes for the heavyweight championship. And this is where the stuff begins. Ali's had been out of the ring, and people would point to the Shavers fight and the two fights with Leon Spinks to where the health was coming down. I mean, we know the story with that. I'm not going to dig into that. We know the story with this. As this fight was about to be put together, and a specialist examined Muhammad Ali, and everybody knew he was physical decline. It really showed in this when basically, according to the reports, especially from Thomas Hauser, one of the real credible reporters in the boxing fraternity, and he was the one that wrote this way back. Muhammad Ali failed the pre-fight examination. It is reported that he couldn't stand on one foot, nor he could touch his nose. I mean, is it I was wondering, is that the equivalent of a sobriety test you would take, if you were pulled over? I mean, they make you walk on one foot, touch it, close your eyes, tip of your nose. Same thing happened with this, and Muhammad Ali flunked it. And basically, he was misdiagnosed with some kind of a thyroid condition on top of it, which they gave him a Thyrolar. It is basically a dangerous drug, which is declared high risk. And we talk about him being not prepared. He just retired after beating Spinks for the heavyweight title 2 years before it, and basically had to go through a tough weight loss, which basically, from all reports, he was over his best fighting weight. And basically, even his trainer, Angelo Dundee, said he was done. But we still had the fight. Well, he managed to go through it. Who was someone who would have been brave enough to step in the middle and say, we're not having this? Because even Larry Holmes, he said this countless times. He was reluctant to go through with it, knowing Ali's health. And even he showed it in the fight. I'm not going to talk about the fight. You know what happened. It was a one-round beatdown. Angelo Dundee throws a towel at the end of the 10th round to save Ali from possibly getting killed. But where was someone tough enough to step into this and basically say, we're not having it? Because that's where this went south, and this was going to go south, and badly. Because this was coming. I mean, look at how Ali, go back to the thriller in Manila as I talked about the other night. I mean, Ali was just spending a boatload of time laying on the ropes against Joe Frazier, and Joe Frazier was pounding on him. Some say what started with that fight, where it slowly became his physical decline. And of course, the tough fight he had with Ernie Shavers in '77, where at times Shavers looked like he was going to decapitate Ali with some of the power he had. Ali's biggest lookout was his chin, and his heart was as big as a national debt, because that's what Ali was. Then we fast forward to this. When you talk about this particular circumstance, the late Freddie Pacheco said it best. The people that let this fight go on should have had their licenses revoked and sent to prison for medical malpractice. Because whoever let this fight go on, and for the reasons it went on, shame on them. Because we could have had a killing that night. And Muhammad Ali, we know, was done at that point. And it's a bigger shame for Larry Holmes, who was an all-time great heavyweight. And as I said, a top 7 or top 6 all-time great heavyweight, who's always going to be remembered for this. Unfortunate for him, because of all the circumstances. I mean, there was reluctance on his end to do anything in this fight, and even he knew, he said himself, as the fight was going on, something wasn't right. And the commission still said, let's go with it. Let's go with it. Evidence was there. The evidence was there. This fight shouldn't have taken place to begin with. They had every opportunity to stop it from happening, but they let it go. They let it go. Nobody has an answer why. Was it because it was a Vegas cash grab? More than likely. I mean, even then, what did he gain out of it? Nothing was gained. Everybody lost this night. Everyone lost this night. The fans lost because they saw the end of the greatest. Of course, Ali lost in more ways than one. Holmes lost because he's remembered for this forever. And the guy that came after Ali, because he can never escape this, despite everything he tries to do and say. And the people that let this fight happen also lost because this thing should have never came through. Never. And nobody still is asking an honest question, why? Because if you have a pre-fight exam and you flunk it, and you flunk it in a combat sport, because we see it's now more safety precautionary today as it was back in 1980. If it's flunked like that, it is evident to your face, this shouldn't go on. Why did you do anything to prevent it from going on? It was right there in front of your face. You should have done something about it, but you didn't. And that's what makes this night memorable for all of the wrong reasons, because everybody lost. And I mean everyone. The networks who had to televise it, the commentators who had to call it, the trainers and the fans who were at Caesar's Palace, the doctors, and even even the people in the Holmes' camp. The reason why they lost, even though they got the official win, it's going to be remembered for him for the longest time. Excuse me, I apologize. It's going to be remembered by him for the longest time. And it's unfortunate because Larry Holmes was a terrific, terrific heavyweight. I mean, you don't run 7.5 years with 20 successful title defenses to just be some bum of the month. And Larry Holmes was no bum of the month. This circumstance, this fight should have taken place to begin with. Anybody with a functioning brain knows it. Anyone that says it does better have a legit reason for it, because you'll look stupid if you think it did. Because it didn't. Plain and simple. It's just rather unfortunate because every time October 2nd comes around, we're reminded of what the dark side of the sport can be. And as I talked about in the Ali Frazier trilogy the other night on the Frazier end, and a lot of people complain about this time after time after time when we see fights. Sometimes the fighters need to be seen from themselves. An opportunity was, in this case, to save Muhammad Ali from himself and the boxing fraternity in general to have this event go through. Nobody wanted to step in. Why? Somebody has to give an honest answer. Someone who was there, and someone who witnessed it, if they can. Because it was an embarrassment for the sport, maybe in all of pop culture, just the image of Ali offering nothing, just leaning on the ropes, thinking Larry Holmes is going to punch himself out. Let me remind you, when Ali was leaning against the ropes against Foreman and Frazier, he was punching back. When he was leaning against the ropes against Larry Holmes, he brought nothing. And even Holmes was reluctant to do it by his own admission because he didn't know the situation. Even he said, I don't know if he was playing possum or I know he was really hurt. And he pulled back. And even he said he was sad that night happened. Not just him, but of course everyone. It's a somber story of a fighter, and we see this all the time, who is so far past his expiration date, but they decide to leave the product on the shelf, hoping someone could come pick it up. That's what happened on this night. And there was opportunities to take it on the shelf and send it packing. They didn't. And it was a crying shame. It was just a bad night. It was an embarrassing night, simply because high-powered people didn't want to do their jobs the right way. The evidence was there. They saw it out of their own two eyes, but just let it go. Why? Nobody knows. Answers still need to be given 45 years later. Just unreal. And this is the part of the game that we get all the time. It's unfortunate. I mean, you guys say you got to prevent this from happening. Not just this. There's been other examples of it, many of them, and they let it go. Nobody knows the real reason why, and it's terrible. Because maybe Ali, you probably say should have stayed retired after Spinks. Easy to say when we talk about the competitive nature of a fighter, because they have it in their blood. They think they can have one last effort to hear the phrase "and anew." We talk about winning a championship again. It's a case where the body just grotesquely failed Muhammad Ali. It was actually failing him, going back to the Thriller in Manila. And you talk about the Shavers and the two Spinks fights. And when it was presented to everyone affiliated with the highest powers for this event, and they had a chance to say, we're not going through with it, they walked away and let it happen. Why? Nobody knows. It's unfortunate. It's terrible. It's something that, we like to not want to talk about. But whenever year of October 2nd comes around, that's one of the things in the minds of everyone, not just in the boxing community, but also in sports communities. Because back then, the heavyweight championship of the world was the it thing. And the people that had to spend their money at Caesar's Palace to witness this in person and watch it across a closed circuit and, television replays were just brokenhearted in more ways than one. Everyone lost this night. And every time we think about October 2nd, 1980, and this particular event, it's one of those situations where you just want to say, everybody lost, plain and simple. Because this should have, let me back up. This had zero business taking place. And who let it go? Nobody knows. Why was it gone on through with it? Nobody knows. Credible people said it should have been stopped. Freddie Pacheco was right, saying whoever let this go after the flunked exam should have had their licenses revoked and sent to prison for medical malpractice, because we had a near killing that night. The biggest lockout was Larry Holmes showed total respect and total concern for the well-being of Muhammad Ali that night. And even he lost. Even though he got the official win, he lost, because that's going to be his legacy, unfortunately, for the minds of the boxing casuals. It is unfortunate for him and everybody in the community, because this is something that should have never taken place to begin with. Everybody knows this. Again, I don't know why. I wasn't there that night. I was barely a child, so I wasn't there. Don't ask me for answers. I don't know. Power play from the promoters, power play from the high dollar, league execs or whatever, you name it. But that's what it was. And 45 years ago today was a night everyone affiliated with the boxing and sports communities, that included Larry Holmes, wound up losers, because we shouldn't have had that. Here's the thing, and I'll say this as I wrap this up. In the combat sports game, everyone complains about, fighters going on, matchmaking, fighters going on too long, taking big, tough fights too soon. And of course, when we see a boxing match, people complain about fights being stopped too soon or whatever. When you have a chance to save someone from themselves, you better do it. Because if you don't, and given the brutality of how combat sports can be, including boxing, and at times I'm guilty of it, I'm not an exception. But if you have a chance to save someone from themselves, do it. Because it's one thing to have a competitive sport like combat sports, as it is. Not just boxing, all of them. Even MMA, karate, among many others. But the gift of life, you only get it once. And if you can save them from themselves to save a life in the brutal area known as combat sports, do it. They may hate you. They may hate you immediately. But down the line, maybe they can turn around and say, thank you. Because the last thing we need to see is something that took place 45 years ago at Caesar's Palace. And this combat sports, basically this blessing and its curse, its beauty and its ugliness, is the brutality that comes with it. Sometimes it's poetic emotion. Sometimes it's just brute force. But that's what you get time in and time out. And if you can save a fighter from themselves, do it. Eddie Futch did that in the Thriller in Manila 50 years ago. And on that particular night in Caesar's Palace, somebody should have done it before the fight took place. Otherwise, if they did, a whole lot of different discussions will be taking place. And we're not talking about this as a night everybody lost. Plain and simple. And that'll wrap up this edition of Sirhan on X. No show tomorrow night. I will be back Monday with an NFL recap and more NFL slates. For those that missed tonight's show and other ones I have in the past, you can catch those on the Apple Podcast, the iHeartRadio, and the Spotify apps if you guys have those on your mobile devices, especially in Cincinnati with the iHeartRadio app, which has become a craze over here all of a sudden since someone's told the whole world I was on it. Have at it. As I said, you guys do the views, you guys do the reviews. I don't brag about it. You guys do the bragging for me. And as always, make self-care your number one priority in life. Always take care of yourself first before you take care of anything else. Take care of yourself first. All the good things will come your way. A part of taking care of yourself first is sometimes saving an individual from themselves, just like we just talked about. But if you don't take care of yourself first, nothing else is going to matter. Focus on you, stay true to you, and all the good things will come your way. Have a good rest of the night. Take care of yourselves. God bless. Enjoy the 3-day weekend, and I'll see you guys Monday.